It's time for our week one college football picks. We'll start in Nashville, a noon Eastern kick on ESPN, Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt. The Hokies a 13.5-point favorite on the road. There's a lot of unknowns for Vanderbilt. New offensive coordinator. Their head coach takes over as the defensive play caller. New quarterback. Lost a couple of key players to the transfer portal. I think you have those unknowns on that side, and this is a Virginia Tech team on the other that brings back a lot of experience on both sides of the ball. For that reason, I'm going with Virginia Tech, Hokies by 2 touchdowns. Next up, Penn State at West Virginia, a noon Eastern kick on Fox. This is an ancient rivalry, but Penn State has not played in Morgantown in over a quarter century. Nittany Lions come in a 7.5-point road favorite. I really like this Penn State defense, and I think that they'll be able to do just enough to slow down a strong West Virginia rushing attack. I like Penn State. I think they go on the road and they pull out a close win over West Virginia. Moving on, Clemson and Georgia, a noon Eastern kickoff on ABC. A de facto road game for the Tigers, having to play the Dogs in Atlanta. This line has moved down a bit, was 13.5 for Georgia. Now the Bulldogs only an 11.5-point favorite. I know everyone is down on Clemson, but just for a second, imagine how quickly the narrative around this program could switch if they are able to go into Atlanta and come out with the win over the Dogs. I think the key for Clemson and quarterback Cade Klubnik is going to be to avoid costly turnovers. They turned the ball over a lot last year in their losses, and if they have turnover problems in this game, I think it could get ugly. That said, I think the turnover margin ends up being fairly even, and if that's the case, I think the Tigers can hang around and make this a 4-quarter game. Georgia wins 23-20, but I think this is closer than the experts think. Moving on, Miami at Florida, a 3:30 Eastern kickoff on ABC. A 3:30 August kickoff in Florida is brutal, but the temperature in the swamp is likely to pale in comparison to the heat the losing coach will be feeling. Miami, a slight road favorite by 2.5. I like both of these rosters, and with this game being in the swamp, I've kind of gone back and forth a bit. I just think at the end of the day, Cam Ward, the new quarterback for Miami, I think if he's as good as advertised, and by all accounts he has been so far, I think he ends up being the difference in this game. I'm going Miami on the road by a field goal. Going on, LSU and USC will play in prime time on ABC. This one on Sunday night from Las Vegas. Tigers a 4.5-point favorite, but both teams come in with very real questions on defense and new quarterbacks. On one side, you have a talented but inexperienced USC passing attack going up against an LSU secondary that had really struggled last season. On the other, you have a USC defense with legitimate concerns up front along the defensive line, trying to match up against an LSU offensive line that's arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the entire country. I think that LSU's offensive line plays up to their standard in this game. It allows them to control the game at the end, and I think LSU wins a high-scoring football game by 2 field goals. Going on, Boston College at Florida State. This one on Monday night at 7:30. The Noles, of course, trying to bounce back after a disastrous loss to Georgia Tech a week ago. They are a significant home favorite. I think Florida State comes out with their season on the line, quite frankly, and they respond after what happened last week. I like the Noles to bounce back at home. I'm going Florida State by 2 touchdowns over Boston College. Going on now, South Dakota State at Oklahoma State, a 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Jackrabbits come in on a 29-game win streak as the 2-time reigning champs at the FCS level, and the Pokes of Oklahoma State have had some uninspiring non-conference performances in recent years, and they are only a 10-point favorite at home in this game. I was originally going to Oklahoma State, but I have Oklahoma State written down. I thought Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State star running back, gets it done at the end, but I've changed my mind. I'm going South Dakota State on the road. The Jackrabbits upset Oklahoma State with a big shocker in week 1 of the college football season. Going on now, Fresno State at Michigan. This is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff on NBC. The Wolverines begin their title defense under the bright lights at the Big House. As significant favorites, 21 points is what they are laying. Obviously, I'm going with Michigan. They'll win this game, but I think with Texas coming into Ann Arbor next weekend in a huge showdown, I think Michigan could get out to a big lead and kind of take their foot off the gas a bit as we get into the fourth quarter. For that reason, I think Michigan wins this football game, but only by 20. Going on now, the Pac-12 is no more, but can I interest you in some Big 12 after dark? New Mexico traveling to Tucson to take on Arizona at 10:30 Eastern kickoff on ESPN. The Wildcats, a massive home favorite. I'm a bit concerned that with the way Arizona was rolling late last season, remember they won 7 in a row to close out the year, that with their coach going to Washington, which means they have to break in a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. It could take some time for them to get back to the level they were playing at the end of last year. Remember, their star quarterback back, star receiver back, so that their pieces are there, but I've gone back and forth here. I just really like this Arizona team again. I was high on them last year. I think they could be a good team this year. A tough schedule, especially early on, but I think they start out with the win here. I like Arizona to cover that 31 and get a big win over New Mexico, 45-13. Moving on now, real quick, an upset pick of the week before we get to the main event. Southern Illinois traveling to Provo to take on BYU. This is a Southern Illinois team that has beaten FBS teams each of the last 2 years, and BYU is a 14-point home favorite. I just think BYU has too many questions. You look at, there's uncertainty at quarterback. Can LJ Martin, their star running back, be healthy enough to play and even really play effectively? Those are two big concerns. We just don't know how they're going to play out, and for that reason, I think Southern Illinois, who has that history of beating FBS teams, can come into BYU and either give them a scare or even get an outright win over BYU. Now, to the game of the week, in prime time, on ABC, Notre Dame and Texas A&M will square off in a decision I'm sure that nobody took issue with this past offseason. EA Sports named Kyle Field as the toughest place to play in the country. The Aggie faithful will get the chance to back that up in real life on Saturday night. Aggies, a field goal favorite over the 7th-ranked Irish. This is going to be a very tough environment for the Irish to navigate. Only 6 combined starts for this Notre Dame offensive line. You combine that with the crowd noise and what figures to be a tough Texas A&M defensive front, led by one of the top edge rushers in all of college football in Nick Scorton. And I think the Irish are going to have their work cut out for them. For that reason, I'm going with the Aggies. I think Texas A&M wins a close one at home. A&M 24-20 to open the college football season.